Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, your research, our notes, and we try to boil it all down for the most important insights for you. Today, we're diving into something that honestly sounds like pure science fiction, but it's becoming incredibly fast. Brain-computer interfaces, BCIs. Think about controlling things with your mind, moving objects, maybe creating art, even communicating. Mind to mind. It sounds amazing, right? Maybe also a little bit unsettling. You've sent us a lot of material on this, and our mission today is really to get into that core tension, the incredible promise versus, the potential risks of merging minds and machines. We want to decode what this means right now, and maybe even for what it means to be human down the line. Okay, so let's unpack this. At its heart, our sources say BCIs create a direct link, a pathway, between the brain and some external device. It completely bypasses the normal nerves and muscles, basically controlled by thought. What's the fundamental why here? Why is this so important?
Right, that's the crucial starting point, isn't it? The why. The
Yeah.
reason BCIs are, well, potentially revolutionary. It really hits home when you think about people who've lost that connection to the world. Think spinal cord injuries or diseases like ALS. Their brain might be sending out signals perfectly fine, move hand, but the body just can't respond. The pathway is broken. BCIs step in to bridge that exact gap. They read those brain signals directly, figure out the intention, and send commands to, say, a robotic hand or a computer cursor or maybe a speech device. It's about restoring function, giving back a voice or movement that was thought lost.
That really puts the human impact front and center.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we want to understand how this actually works, the sources point to two main types of BCIs, and they seem quite different. First, the one that feels most sci-fi, invasive BCIs. Can you walk us through that one? What does it involve?
Sure. Invasive BCIs are, well, exactly what they sound like. It means electrodes are surgically implanted directly into the brain tissue. We're talking about getting right up close to the neurons, often in areas controlling movement or speech. The big advantage, and the sources all stress this, is accuracy, signal quality. Because you're right there, you get really high-resolution signals. You can detect subtle intentions, fine motor control thoughts. But the downside is pretty significant, obviously. Brain surgery, risks like infection, bleeding, maybe scarring, and the long-term effects. While that's still being heavily researched. Neuralink, Elon Musk's company, their tiny implanted threads are probably the most famous example right now.
Okay, surgery. That's intense. Then there's the other end of the scale, non-invasive BCIs. These sound much less dramatic. Sensors on the scalp, like an EEG cap. The appeal seems obvious. Safer, painless, maybe even usable at home. But I'm guessing there's a big trade-off in performance.
You've hit it exactly. It's all about that trade-off. Signal quality versus invasiveness. There's a great analogy in the research. Think of the brain like a radio station. With an invasive BCI, you're basically inside the studio, plugged right in. Crystal clear sound, every detail. With a non-invasive one, though, you're outside the building with a portable radio. You can hear the broadcast, you get the idea, but there's static, interference. The skull itself actually blocks and sort of smears the brain's electrical signals, so the resolution is lower. Plus, things like just blinking your eyes or tensing a muscle, that creates noise that muddies the signal further. So yeah, a non-invasive headset might let you play a game or type slowly, but the precision just isn't comparable to an implant. And this difference, this trade-off, really dictates what each type is best suited for right now.
That radio analogy makes it really clear. Okay, so we have these two main approaches. Now, how do they actually work? What's the process? The sources break it down into basically a four-step system. It reads brain signals, cleans them up, translates them, and then makes something happen. It all starts with step one. Signal acquisition. This is the listening to the brain part. Your brain cells, neurons, fire electrically when you think, feel, move, anything, really. These electrical impulses create patterns, and electrodes pick them up. Now, the closer the electrode is to the neurons, the better the signal, like you said. So non-invasive EEG is on the scalp furthest away. Then there's ECOG, that's semi-invasive, electrodes on the brain surface. And then the highly invasive microelectrodes right inside the brain tissue. The analogy used is like placing microphones at a concert. Closer to the stage of the brain, better sound quality, better signal.
Exactly. And once you've got those raw signals, which are often really noisy,
Mm-hmm.
you hit step two, signal processing. Think cleaning and interpreting the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Like that concert recording analogy, it's full of crowd noise, echoes, maybe feedback. You need to clean that up first. Brain signals are incredibly complex, messy even, affected by everything. So this step uses really sophisticated algorithms, a lot of AI and machine learning now, to filter out the noise. It identifies the specific patterns that actually mean something like the pattern for imagine moving my left hand.
Yeah.
The system has to learn your specific brain patterns. It's kind of like a super smart audio engineer cleaning up a recording, isolating the important sound.
Okay, so you capture the signal, clean it up, Then step 3, translation algorithms, brain to computer language.
Mm.
So the system now understands the cleaned up signal, the intention. How does it become a command?
Right. This is where it converts that recognized brain pattern into something a machine can actually execute. So the pattern for thinking move hand forward gets translated into a command, like activate robotic arm motor forward, or thinking choose letter A becomes send command select A on screen. This involves a lot of neural informatics, programming, basically turning brain activity into digital code. Think of it like Google Translate, but for thoughts, into machine instructions.
Got it. Brain language to machine language.
And that leads directly to the final step. Step 4, device output. Action in the real world. The machine gets the command and executes it. The robotic arm moves, the cursor shifts, text appears, a wheelchair turns, the light switches on, whatever the connected device is. And what's really amazing is the speed. This can happen in milliseconds. Your brain is the conductor, the BCI system is the orchestra, the device makes the sound, your thought becomes action. And the sources give these really powerful examples, like you mentioned earlier. A person paralyzed, they think about moving their arm, the implant picks up the activity in the motor cortex. The system processes it, translates it, sends the command, and the robotic arm moves. This isn't just theory anymore. It's happening in clinical trials, changing lives.
It's just, yeah, incredible to wrap your head around. The human side is immense. And you're right, this isn't just lab experiments. BCIs are genuinely transforming medicine already. For people with paralysis, motor disabilities, it's huge. Spinal cord injuries often cut off the signal, but the brain part, the intention, is still there. BCIs read that intention, maybe from the motor cortex, and turn it into commands for robotic limbs, cursors, wheelchairs. It really is about reconnecting the mind to the world. We're seeing examples of quadriplegic individuals using thought to control a robotic arm to feed themselves. It's profound. And then you mentioned ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. That's another critical area. It's such a cruel disease, paralyzing the body but leaving the mind sharp. People become locked in. BCIs offer a lifeline. They allow patients to type just by thinking, selecting letters, maybe using a speech synthesizer, even browsing the web. For someone completely unable to move or speak, this is, well, it's connection, communication, autonomy, writing emails, talking to family.
Absolutely. And the medical uses keep expanding. Look at stroke rehabilitation. BCIs are being used there to help rewire the brain. They might work with a robotic exoskeleton. The patient imagines moving their arm, the BCI detects it, the exoskeleton moves the arm. This helps reinforce those neural pathways, encouraging the brain to heal itself. It's like physical therapy, but driven by intention. And there's early work, still very experimental, in blindness. Instead of fixing the eye, the idea is to bypass it and stimulate the visual cortex directly, trying to create some form of artificial sight straight in the brain. The results are basic now, like blurry patterns, but the concept is radical.
It really is. And speaking of pushing boundaries, the sources highlighted a couple of major breakthroughs that show where things are at. First, that Neuralink monkey playing Pong video. Everyone saw that. Why was that specific demo such a big deal, beyond just the wow factor?
Well, it was a very public, very clear proof of concept. It demonstrated high-resolution, real-time wireless brain control in action. Seeing that monkey control the paddle just with its thoughts, with that speed and accuracy, it made the potential feel much more tangible, less like science fiction. It showed complex neural signals being decoded and translated into precise actions, live.
Right, took it out of the purely academic realm. And the other one mentioned was Synchron's endovascular BCI. That sounds like a totally different approach to implantation.
It is, and it's potentially huge. Synchron's device is inserted through a blood vessel, usually the jugular vein in the neck. It then travels up into a blood vessel near the brain's motor cortex. The breakthrough here is no open brain surgery. This makes the procedure much safer, faster, less invasive. It's a massive step towards making BCIs more accessible, potentially available to many more people who need them. So the big picture takeaway from all this really is that these aren't just lab curiosities or future dreams. They are happening now. They are already improving quality of life for people with some really tough conditions. And every success helps push the tech forward.
Okay, so the medical applications are clear and frankly inspiring. But here's where, as you said, it gets really interesting, maybe even a bit weird. The sources talk about this shift. Once you can restore function, the next question is, inevitably, can you enhance function? What if we use this tech on people who are already healthy? That's a massive leap.
It really is. And the possibilities start to spiral outwards, both exciting and maybe a bit unnerving. The research points to several areas already in progress beyond medicine.
One that keeps coming up is thought-based typing, just thinking words onto a screen. My first reaction is, great, no more fat thumbing on my phone. But the sources emphasize the potential for speed, efficiency, hands-free communication. Imagine writing an email just by thinking it.
Exactly. The potential efficiency is huge. And tied into that is gaming and VR. Integrating BCIs there could make experiences incredibly immersive,
Yeah.
controlling characters, interacting with virtual environments just with your thoughts. It also opens up gaming for people with physical disabilities in a big way. Imagine raising a shield just by focusing or casting a spell by achieving a certain mental state, the virtual world responding directly to your mind.
That sounds amazing, but it goes beyond just control, right? The idea of cognitive enhancement itself. What does that mean in the context of BCIs?
Right, this is where it gets into neurofeedback territory. Using a BCI to monitor your own brain activity in real time, and then training yourself to improve focus, memory, maybe even learning speed. It's like having a personal trainer for your brain. The BCI shows you what your brain is doing, and you learn mental techniques to shift it into more optimal states for concentration or creativity or relaxation. It's about actively tuning your own cognitive performance.
Wow. Okay, that's a whole other level. But then the sources really push into the future. Concepts that sound almost like pure speculation, but maybe BCIs make them less speculative. What were some of the really far-out ideas?
Well, one that really stood out was remote collaboration via thought. Imagine multiple people linked by BCIs, sharing ideas or coordinating complex tasks without speaking or typing, like a shared mental workspace. It's kind of like a telepathic Zoom call, I suppose. Another one is human-AI co-creation. The AI reads your mental imagery, a melody, a visual design, and helps you bring it into reality. Think about breaking down creative barriers. No more, I wish I could draw this. The AI helps manifest your mental vision directly.
Okay, that's pretty wild. And the ultimate extension of that, the one that really gives you pause, is direct brain-to-brain communication. Telepathy, essentially. What did the sources say about the immediate roadblocks there beyond just the obvious privacy concerns?
Oh, the complexity is just staggering. I mean, even setting aside the massive ethical questions, the first hurdle is just, how do thoughts even translate? My mental concept of dog is built on my experiences. It's different from yours. How do you bridge that gap? Thoughts aren't neat little data packets. They're fuzzy, contextual, emotional. Standardizing or translating that reliably is an immense challenge. But the underlying trend is there. We seem to be moving towards a future where keyboards, mice, maybe even voice commands become secondary. Instead of us constantly adapting to the machine's interface, the machine starts adapting to us, to our thoughts. That's the big shift these concepts point towards.
It really underscores that saying. The more power a technology has, the more carefully we need to handle it. And BCIs tap into something so fundamental, our thoughts, our intentions, our very selves. So let's pivot to those risks and ethical concerns. They were definitely a major theme in the sources. First big one, privacy. The question posed was stark. Who owns your thoughts? How serious is this data issue?
It's incredibly serious. It's unlike any data we've dealt with before. BCIs are collecting neural data that reflects your thoughts, intentions, emotional states. It's profoundly personal, more personal than your search history, or even your DNA, arguably. So the question of ownership is critical. Does it belong to you, the company making the BCI, the government? The risks are obvious. Your neural data being sold, analyzed for marketing, used for surveillance, maybe even manipulated without your consent. Imagine ads targeted not just at what you click, but at your subconscious preferences, or employers monitoring your mental state. Your inner world isn't necessarily private anymore.
That is a deeply unsettling thought, and it flows right into the next concern, security. My immediate thought is, can your brain be hacked? What's the vulnerability here?
It's a major concern raised in the research. Like any connected device, BCIs could potentially be hacked, and the consequences are terrifying. Someone could potentially read thoughts, yes, but maybe also injects false signals, influence your decisions, alter your behavior, hijack control of a connected limb or device. It takes threats like identity theft to a whole new frightening level. Mind manipulation, essentially. And alongside that is the more subtle issue of autonomy. Are you still in control? When a machine is interpreting, maybe even predicting, your intentions, where's the line between your agency and the machine's action? If a BCI helps you walk but starts correcting your gait based on its algorithms, without your conscious input each time, who's really directing the movement? You or the code? It blurs the lines of control and decision-making.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And then there's the issue of equity, access. Who gets this technology, especially the advanced invasive kinds? They could be very expensive. Are we heading towards a future with cognitive haves and have-nots? It feels like it could create a profound new kind of digital divide, literally based on brain augmentation. And finally, the unknown long-term effects. What happens over time? We just don't know the full story of having implants interacting with brain tissue for years, decades.
Exactly.
Inflammation, scarring. Could it subtly change brain function, personality, mood? The brain is so complex, so delicate. Even small, chronic interactions could have unforeseen consequences down the road. We need long-term studies.
It really hammers home the point.
Yeah.
With BCIs, we're not just talking about a new tool. We're interfacing directly with the substrate of the self. These aren't just technical hurdles. They're deep ethical, societal, even philosophical questions we need to grapple with as this technology matures.
Okay, so given all these potential pitfalls, it's good to know regulators are involved, governments, health authorities. They're starting to step in as BCIs leave the lab. What does that regulation look like?
Right, it's definitely happening. In the U.S., the FDA is classifying many BCIs as medical devices. That means if a BCI is intended to treat or diagnose something, it has to go through rigorous safety and efficacy testing. Clinical trials proving benefits outweigh risks, long-term safety data. The thinking is, if it's going in your brain, it needs to be as safe and reliable as, say, a pacemaker. Europe often has even stricter regulations for health tech. They tend to demand really extensive clinical data, focusing heavily on data privacy, user consent, risk management, sort of a safety-first, speed-second approach. And beyond government agencies, there are also independent ethical review boards looking at research projects, assessing potential harms, ensuring participants give truly informed consent.
So there are guardrails being put in place, thank goodness, but the sources also mention these really tricky legal gray zones, areas where the rules aren't clear yet. What were some of those sticking points?
Oh, there are quite a few tough ones being debated. For example, if an implanted BCI has a flaw, can it be recalled like a faulty car part? How would that even work physically and ethically? Should healthy people be allowed to use powerful BCIs purely for enhancement, not therapy? Where do we draw that line? What about psychological dependence? Could people become overly reliant on BCIs for core functions or even their sense of self? And a really big one, liability. If a BCI-controlled device causes harm, say a robotic arm malfunctions due to a misread thought or a hack, who is responsible? The user, the manufacturer, the surgeon. These are complex legal and ethical knots that current frameworks aren't really equipped to handle yet.
It really highlights how the law and our ethical thinking need to evolve just as fast as the technology itself.
That's exactly it. The goal of regulation, ideally, isn't to stifle innovation. It's to make sure BCIs are developed and deployed safely, transparently, ethically, respecting individual rights and dignity. It's about finding a way for the technology and our societal values to move forward together.
We really do seem to be at this pivotal moment, a transition. Moving from sci-fi concept to actual trials and early uses, the sources kept comparing it to the dawn of the internet, or smartphones, maybe even electricity. It feels like we're not just creating a new gadget, we're potentially reshaping our interaction with everything, and maybe even ourselves.
That's the sense you get, absolutely. As BCIs start to trickle into daily life, even in limited ways initially, they raise these profound questions. Think about jobs. Could BCIs make certain skills obsolete? If you can just think instructions into software, what does that mean for coding, design, writing? Imagine programmers literally thinking code into existence. Or office workers brainstorming collaboratively without saying a word. It could drastically change workflows. And what about artists? Creating music, visual sculptures directly from mental conception? Could it make creativity purer, more immediate, less constrained by physical skill?
And the language barrier point you made earlier,
Yeah.
that's huge. If thoughts, or maybe the intent behind thoughts, could be translated in real time, wow.
Right.
Instant communication across languages. The potential impact on global connection, culture, diplomacy, it's staggering. BCIs as the universal translator.
But then we circle back to that fundamental question that runs through all the sources. How far is too far? How do we navigate enhancement versus therapy? What about addiction to cognitive boosts? The potential effects on personality, mood, free will itself. These aren't new types of questions. We've debated them with genetics, AI, but BCIs make them incredibly personal, incredibly intimate. It's not just about what the tech can do, but what it should do. What boundaries do we as a society want to set? That's why this feels like such a historic turning point. We're not just building external tools anymore. BCIs are the first technology, really, that merges directly with the mind. It's not just about control or communication in the old sense. It could fundamentally alter the experience of being human. That's what makes this moment feel so significant. We're right at that cusp.
What a fascinating and slightly overwhelming journey we've taken. From the basics of BCIs, how they work, the different types, to the incredible medical breakthroughs restoring function. And then into the future possibilities, enhancement, new forms of communication creation, but balanced always by those critical risks. Privacy, security, autonomy, fairness, the long-term unknowns. This dive really underscores it. BCIs aren't science fiction anymore. They're here, they're evolving, and their impact could be immense for individuals and for all of society.
It leaves us with so much to think about. Perhaps a final thought for you, the listener.
Hmm.
As we stand right here at this inflection point, what parts of our human experience do you think are most vulnerable? Or maybe most ripe for enhancement? When technology starts to truly integrate with our innermost thoughts.
A powerful question to ponder. Thank you for sharing your sources and joining us for this deep dive. Keep thinking about these crucial questions. We'll see you next time.